said.
Calling to order the Municipality of Monroeville's regular council meeting for April 11th, 2023. It is 7 p.m. Would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Roll call, please.
Mayor Griesbach?
Here.
Mr. Hizzy?
Here.
Mr. Poach?
Here.
Mr. Stevenson?
Here.
Mr. Wolfram?
Here.
Mr. Adams? Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Biondo?
Here.
Mr. Little?
Here.
Mr. Rapture?
Here.
Ms. Rock?
Here.
Mr. Hugus?
Here.
Mr. Sedlak?
Here.
Mr. Weldon?
Here.
Welcome. We're going to start up our meeting. All of council's in attendance, with the exception of Mr. Adams. He's under the weather. We wish him a speedy recovery. I'm going to open up the floor for public comment on proposed agenda items only. This is for items that are on the agenda this evening. There is another comment period at the end of the meeting, which we'll reserve for any municipal comment, and also on the proposed, the draft of the updated ordinance for our zoning ordinance. So is there anyone like to address council on agenda items? Seeing none, we're closing that comment period. I have an executive session announcement. The council conducted an executive session before Citizens Night on Tuesday, April 4th, 2023, from 6:15 to approximately 7 p.m. for personnel and litigation reasons. Council legislative action, if any, shall be taken at the tonight's April 11th council meeting. Council, moving over to our minutes. We have 3 to consider and to approve this evening. The Citizens Night meeting of March 7th, 2023, the regular council meeting of March 14th, 2023, and the council agenda setting meeting of March 7th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none.
All three.
All 3, yep. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Reports of the tax collections. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. List of bills and budget transfers. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Questions or comments? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. And the payroll report, council.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving over to vacancies on boards, commissions, and authorities. Mr. Hizzy, anything?
None.
Mr. Poach?
Nothing at this time, sir.
Mr. Stevenson?
I have none at this time.
Mr. Wolfram?
I have nothing, sir.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I would nominate Chet Digbahu to the Human Needs and Resources Advisory Board.
That's a nomination.
Yes,
Very good. Anything else, Mr. Williams?
nothing else.
And Mr. Biondo?
Nothing today.
Thank you. Council, moving over to bids and proposals, the 2023-2024 commodity bids. Mr. Little?
Yes, we discussed this Thursday, and I ran through the commodity bids with council. And we have crack sealant, baseball infield mix, and we have bituminous paving materials, fence materials, and guide rail, reinforced concrete products, wood safety surfacing materials, sign materials, and small paving in place, crushed stone, and storm sewer grates, frames, risers, and lids, and sewer pipes. Mr. Hugus, you said you had some entries into this from the co-stars?
Yes, that's correct. So I would recommend you just don't award certain items. I put that in, I sent you some cliff notes.
Yeah, you mentioned about bituminous paving materials?
Well, we'll just buy that off the co-stars.
Right, right.
We just won't include it in these
Okay,
commodity
that-
bids.
Yeah, you recommended not to,
Correct.
that one, and the other one was,
Do we have to do something? Do we have to amend anything because of that?
No.
Okay. Not with co-stars, because it's
Yeah,
co-stars.
co-stars.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
was that the only one, Paul? You had another one, I thought.
Okay, I'll go through this real quick.
Oh, the wood safety, well, no, that's,
Sign materials.
All right, under sign materials, we do not award, recommend we do not award items 35 through 41. Do not award items 42 through 46,
right, okay, I have that.
and do not award items 47 and 48.
Sharon, you have that?
Yes.
You have that for the, okay. All right.
And then also with the bituminous paving,
Oh, I have that.
we do not award items 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Is there anything else?
No, and then there's nothing to award for the baseball infield mix because there was no bidders. And that is it.
Okay, so for the 2023-2024 commodity bids, I'm seeking a motion to approve what was just outlined.
I'll make a motion to approve with the exceptions of 35, 41, 42, 46, 47, 48, and 1, 2, and 3.
Did he get them all?
I think it's 35 through 48.
Yeah, 35 through 41.
Right.
30, yeah.
42 through 46, 47, and 48.
Correct.
1,
Yeah.
2, and 3.
Right.
Correct.
I second it.
Very good. Motion and a second to approve as stated. Any other questions or comments, council? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving over to our consent agenda of new business, 23-2-SUB Bowser Genesis of Monroeville. Mr. Little.
Okay, applicant is requesting a preliminary and final subdivision approval to subdivide tax parcels 107H175 and 1244-A368 into two lots. Lot 1, excuse me, Lot 1 with an acreage of 15.072 acres and Lot 2 with acreage of 11.710 acres. Property is located at 1580 Golden Mile Highway in the C2 Business Commercial District. Planning Commission has recommended approval.
Make
The
a motion to
applicant here.
approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. The applicant is here. Anyone have any questions or comments, council? Hearing none. There is a motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Congratulations.
Good luck with the project. Thank you.
You.
Easier than last week.
Next item, 23-2-C, Terry Smith. Mr. Little.
Okay, applicant is requesting a conditional use approval to operate a child care facility pursuant to the Monroeville zoning ordinance number 1443 as amended, section 401.9. The property is located at 206 Monroe Street, tax parcel 743E003 in the C2 Business Commercial District. The Planning Commission recommends approval of this application, and we had a hearing on this last Tuesday for the conditional use, and the lady presented her child care facility.
Council, is there a motion? on
Motion
site?
to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any questions or comments?
Question.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
My problem with this site is that hairpin turn to get in there. Now, they're talking 50 to 70 kids a day, which would mean 2 times a day, there's going to be 50 to 70 cars making that turn into that child care facility. And I don't think that design is very good for that. So, and to make that hairpin turn, you're going to have to come down Northern Pike, go in the left lane and make that turn. Otherwise, you gotta turn, and most cars gotta back up and make the turn. So I don't think it's a good setting for that amount of traffic every day.
Any other questions or comments, council?
Well, yeah, I mean, in relation to what you're talking about, Mr. Williams, they made that a wide turn there. If you go back up there, as long as they're using regular SUVs, cars, stuff, they'll make that turn. And the good thing about it is the way that's set up, they don't have to go into the plant or turn around or anything like that. They can continue up that area, the Monroe, and make a left, I forget what the street name is, and just make a big U to get out of there.
It's Madison.
Madison, yeah, you're right. And like I said, so that's the good thing about that. But as long as they're using regular vehicles, I think the turn will be adequate enough and stuff like that. But I can understand your concern for the, amount of traffic that's going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good concern to have, but this is a daycare center. It's not like a school where the late bell rings at a certain time. Traditionally, daycare centers, the drop-offs and pickups are really scattered as far as when people come and go. So I don't think that'll be an issue, but any other further comments, council, on this matter? Well, we do have a motion and a second to approve this item. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
No,
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving over to our next item. We have motions for this evening. There are 3 to consider. Mr. Little.
Yeah, it's a motion to approve approximately $19,326.47 for the asset seizure fund minus the trade-in, and minus the trade-in will be $17,826.47 for a used vehicle for the detective division.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
aye,
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next motion.
Okay, a motion to accept the resignation of Anthony Pacusa from the Planning Commission effective immediately. Thank you very much,
Motion
Anthony, for all
approved.
your work.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Questions or comment?
Comment.
I'd second the thanking of Tony for serving on the planning commission. He's been on there a long time. I know he was on there with me and Bob for a while, and he's done a great job there.
Yeah, and I think he
his
even
insight has
filled in.
been,
I think he even filled in a seat. I think it was longer than.
I think he did. I think he did too.
He did, yeah. And I was also on that board with Tony, and he did a great job. And he indicated in his resignation letter that he would like to serve further if we can find something that we think is a good fit. So I think we need to look at that because Tony's a good man.
Agree, Bob.
he
Agree.
is.
Very good. Anything else, council? So we do have a motion and a second to approve this matter. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next item.
Next item is a housekeeping item, a motion to authorize to advertise an ordinance of the Municipality of Monroeville repealing ordinances number 2464, 2480, 2550, and 2690, and setting forth the requirements for obtaining an occupancy permits prior to transfer of 1- and 2-family dwelling units, establishing inspection requirements for the multifamily dwelling, establishing procedures for obtaining said occupancy permits, and setting fees for said permits.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram? Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Council, moving over to our resolutions for this evening, we have 3. Mr. Little.
Okay, this is an annual resolution where we're resolution exonerating the real estate tax collector from the collection of uncollected taxes for 2022, which is in the amount of $182,191.78, which isn't too bad for a $9 million collection.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments?
Question?
Mr. Williams.
Yeah, now this resolution doesn't say they're not gonna go after this money. Is that correct?
No, they still go
No,
after
we
it. It just
still go
becomes
after it.
delinquent.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
this
then
just
they're
exonerates
delinquent
Pat,
after
that's
that.
all.
Yeah.
Good question. Any other comments or questions, council? Hearing none, there is a motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Next item, the ayes have it.
Okay, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a traffic signal maintenance agreement with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for signalized intersections in the municipality of Monroeville.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Mr. Little.
And a resolution adopting the Cambridge Square Apartments Clubhouse Sewage Planning Module.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Council, moving over to our ordinances, we have one for this evening that was tabled from last month. Mr. Ratcher.
I'm sorry. An ordinance of the Municipality of Monroeville, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the municipality to enter into a land lease with Pittsburgh SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless pursuant to Section 501H of the Home Rule Charter for the lease of a 100 feet by 100 feet parcel of property and associated easements at the Monroeville Public Safety Training Center for the construction of a wireless communications tower and facility.
Make a motion to take it off the table.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to remove it from the table for action. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. This item is on the or is for your consideration.
Make a motion.
to approve.
Second.
Sorry, John.
That's all
You
right.
can have
Make
it.
a motion.
There is a
to approve.
motion and a second to approve. Any questions or comments?
I do, one thing, Bob, can you explain why it's the rest land, so it isn't like we're hiding something here?
Yeah, whenever the cell companies go out and identify areas where they want to put towers, they issue what are called search rings, which are just geographic circles of where they might be able to propagate a signal. With this particular site, they started out in Restland Memorial Park. That was the first place they identified. Then they found out that didn't work, then eventually they approached the municipality. The signal did work up there. And
Yeah.
so, once they identify these things by a certain name, it takes an act of Congress to change the name.
Thank you.
So, that's what it's called now, Westland Memorial Park.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments, council? Hearing none, there is a motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram? Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Reports of our staff. Mr. Ratcher, anything for this evening?
Nothing, Mayor.
Mr. Little.
Yeah, just two items. The very successful annual Jack Sedlak Memorial Cleanup Day is Saturday, April 29th, beginning at 9 a.m. How we doing, Joe, with volunteers?
We are at about 200 volunteers right now, so
we
we're
need
about
more.
halfway there.
We need more. So anybody that wants to help clean up the community, we have this the last Saturday of every year, of every month in April, and it's a great event, and you clean up a little bit, and then we have a big picnic up at the park with hot dogs and all kind of different prizes. So everybody put on your gloves and get your garbage bag. The next one is Community Day. Community Day notoriously was always at the last Saturday of July, but we've moved it up to June 10th. We think it's a better date. So Community Day will be up at Community Park West, June 10th this year. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Mr. Hugus.
No, sir.
Ms. Rock.
Nothing.
Thank you. I'm going to open the floor for public comment on any municipal item, including the draft ordinance of the updated zoning ordinance. If there's anyone who'd like to address council, please sign in.
Well,
And as every comment period, we ask you keep your comments to 5 minutes.
Lois Drumhiller, Monroeville. Last week, Monroeville conducted an advertised public hearing relating to a comprehensive zoning ordinance update. Evidence reveals that this hearing was conducted improperly, which is a point of this email that I am sending to the municipal manager of Pitcairn. I have a question as to whether the Borough of Pitcairn was notified in accordance with the Municipal Planning Code about Monroeville's proposal to change Monroeville's official zoning map. Did you receive communication as an adjacent municipality to review and comment on this change by the governing body of Monroeville? I believe the only information you may have received came from David Mintz and myself when we met with Pitcairn officials this late January about proposed changes in Monroeville's comprehensive zoning ordinance and map. At that time, it appeared that any change affecting expansion of the landfill was primarily Pitcairn's concern. Notification of this land use change should have been forthcoming from Monroeville before that time. Section 408C of the Municipal Planning Code requires any municipality proposing to adopt an official map or an amendment thereto to contact adjacent municipalities that have any street or public land leading into said adjacent municipality so that their governing body and planning agency can review and comment. The MPC states that such comments of the adjacent municipality shall be made upon notice of the governing body of the municipality proposing it. A review and any comments by Pitcairn would therefore need to be given to Monroeville, as that proposed action shall not be taken until such comments are received. If, however, Pitcairn or any other adjacent municipality failed to respond within 45 days, the governing body of the proposing municipality would proceed without delay as to what might affect other local communities. Not all Monroeville residents living close to zoning district changes were notified. This was revealed in testimony given on April 4th. Since that time, Mayor Griesbach appears to have walked back earlier statements he made as to the due process of this public hearing. Yes, there was proper advertisement announcing the public hearing, but at this hearing, the mayor used terms like legislative public hearing. Notable was the omission of swearing in a room full of public citizens with prepared testimony for public hearing. Citizens who filled council chambers standing room only were informed about 90% of the way through this hearing that a 5 to 10 minute recess would be needed. After the recess, the mayor interrupted the public hearing again because, due to a long wait by the applicants who were part of a separate work session, had to be considered. The mayor inserted into the hearing agenda at that time part of council's work session to hear about new business from 2 business applicants meant for the work session. One of the 2 applicants under new business appropriately required a public hearing. This was carried out by the mayor swearing that applicant in for her testimony. Somehow the mayor recalled swearing in at that moment. But whatever loss of memory there was to include swearing in for a public hearing was made good at that time. And perhaps the mayor might have remembered to continue the rest of the zoning ordinance public hearing with swearing in, even if it was a delayed process. But this was not so, as 4 remaining citizens were told to continue testimony, again, without swearing in, and the zoning ordinance public hearing was completed without further concern as to how citizens in a public hearing should have been sworn in. Some citizens in the standing room only capacity by this time left council chambers. The mayor didn't let other contiguous municipalities have a chance to speak, nor any secondary comments to point out his error. When citizens asked later for a copy of the proceedings, Monroeville announced that they didn't have a transcript of this hearing, only meeting notes. My interest in sharing this information comes from a concern that Monroeville Council improperly advised contiguous municipal citizens as to the rule of law under the MPC. It considers under Section 502.1 contiguous municipalities that standing be given to Pitcairn members of council. Mayor Griesbach only allowed 1 member of Pitcairn Council to represent all others who were turned away. And that went out today. And while I'm at it and have a little time left over, I have also discussed some things with Joseph Erkman at PMPEI. He's the Director of Education and Training for the Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Education Institute. There are some very, very good courses that I want to recommend for our Planning Commission, and I understand you accepted the resignation of the chair.
Thank you for your comments.
These are the courses that I'm going to leave with him at this time. Thank you.
I'll leave the floor open for anyone that would like to address council on any municipal item. Seeing none, we're going to close the comment period and move over to our reports of our council members. Mr. Hizzy, start
I
with
have
you.
none at this time.
Mr. Poach.
Just one thing that's important for today, is that it is my mother's 94th birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
And
birthday to
she's
June.
watching to it, and she'll, I'll be getting a text in a few minutes from her too, as well, too. But,
Great.
long-time resident here in Monroe for a long time. Well, yeah, can't think of it too, so. But happy birthday, Mom. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Poach. Mr. Stevenson.
I would like to wish Mr. Adams, our fellow councilman, a speedy recovery. I would also like to wish all our constituents of the Greek Orthodox faith a happy Easter and Sunday coming up. So that's all I have, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Wolfram.
Short and simple, Councilmember Mike, I just want to wish you a speedy recovery also, and that's all I have. That's all I have.
Very good. Mr. Williams.
On behalf of Mike Adams, who is under the weather tonight, speedy recovery to Mike, talk about the tar and chip program. The only ones aren't getting complaints are those council people who have not had their area tarred and chipped. As soon as they do, there will be some complaints. I would make a motion just to hold off on the tar and chip and still provide the $2 million that we agreed on to Paul to do his job.
No.
The only issue I have with that is I think we, Paul addressed this last, I don't know if it was last week or last meeting. It's hard, you kind of, they have to have a plan in place now so that they can start the process. I mean, I think if that's something we want to look at in the future, I'm all for it.
I'd agree with you,
As of
Dennis.
now, I think we need to move forward.
I don't think we clarified it as clear, but that was the conversation. Bob, I mean, to your point from it too, is it's over exaggeration, the train's already kind of left the station for this year too, but we did consider to discuss it, you know, for next year now, but it is in place too. I don't know if we clarified that too, but, you know, there's some other suggestions before that.
Anything else, Mr. Williams?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Biondo.
Well, so first of all, happy Easter to Mike, who's not here, and speedy recovery. Happy Easter to all the Orthodox Christians. I guess I just have a question about the process for this zoning ordinance. I think I've spoken with a couple members, and I think at least some of us are, and maybe everyone, would like to see the oil and gas removed from the Conservancy District. I guess, when can we do that? How do we go about doing that, at least from the Conservancy District? I think that was one of the main concerns of the public. And then secondarily, I also would, I'd like to keep it the way it is right now with Ordinance 2669. It does, and that's kind of the elephant in the room that people kind of left out last week. We'd have to reduce the setback requirement to 500 feet, but it would stay in the M2. I know Ms. Drumheller left, but I think that was part of the concern with from the people of Pitcairn is with the large setback, the drilling operations would take place only in really only in the landfill, which would mostly affect Pitcairn. And I think the way it is legal right now, having as it's ordinance 2669 is what we have in place. It doesn't seem like we've had any issues. I'd keep it in the M2 zoning district. I'd propose keeping it in the M2 zoning district with the 500-foot setback. And that's all I have at this time.
Dennis, I'm going to ask you too. I think that your summary of it's probably pretty close on, but I know we generally have held back on anything until we finished any other public hearing or testimony. So we were always said if we were going to do more, well, we had that last week. We don't have anybody else this evening, so I don't know that we're going to anticipate any more testimony.
Well, I mean, as I mentioned before, as far as this is a multi-step process,
right.
and we have time before we approve this, and there'll be certainly a public forum for that. This is not exactly, but it's very similar how like the budget is. We have a budget public hearing, and then over the subsequent months, we maybe change things in the budget, take things out, put things in. So to answer your first point, probably at any point during a regular council meeting, probably any council person could make a motion to make a change or a correction or an addition. Would that be correct, Mr. Ratcher?
Yeah.
And then that item would just come out, but ultimately, we kind of work our way to get to that final ordinance. And whether that's something that's done now or at subsequent meetings, or to Mr. Poach's point, kind of as we get closer to whenever we are doing it. But yeah, it's going to have to be done at some point if council wants to make some changes. And I believe there's going to be some changes. So
We're sometimes in a damned if you do and you damned if you don't situation in terms of conversation before we've heard everything to do that. Do I have an opinion? I'm forming one, certainly, but I'm not going to, relay it now until we're ready to get close to that approval. Otherwise, we'll, people look at it as saying, hey, we're prejudicing prejudicing the process.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and just to
Do
ease
that too.
Dennis's mind on this, we, as council, can take anything out of that ordinance we want to, whenever we decide to do that.
Yeah. I think we look pretty close, though.
Just one comment, Paul Wilden. The 500-foot setback in the M2 is good enough? I mean,
It fits.
it fits. Okay,
and that's how it currently is in our existing
right.
Right.
ordinance.
Two.
Correct.
And that's about all.
But in the draft, it's larger, a larger setback.
Correct.
My recommendation is just to keep a scorecard on the changes you want to make. You can certainly collaborate and say, okay, we all agree that we're going to do X or do Y. Just keep a scorecard of everything, and then you get to the point where there aren't going to be any more there's not any more public comment. You all are done deliberating, and then we have a final document, and that's the document that you vote on.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to happen is for the public feel that they was left out. So we need to give them every opportunity to, because there's nobody here tonight, doesn't mean they won't be here next month. And I think another month isn't going to hurt nothing, just to make sure that they know that they're going to have another opportunity to.
Yeah, and certainly, residents will have an opportunity at every public meeting to speak about this matter.
Yes.
Both at the Citizens Night meeting and at the regular council meeting. Even if it is not on the agenda, it would still be a part of the meeting where they could discuss it at the regular council meeting. And then once it is finally on the agenda, they'll have those two meetings as well. But at this point, I agree. I think I understand, and after this last Tuesday, as far as where maybe it began from the previous planning commissions and employees that went through these things, how the old laws were. I believe it was originally in Conservancy because that's where traditional gas wells were, existing ones, your typical, what everyone knows is, gas well, and I think that's.
Shallow well.
A shallow well, thank
Shallow
you,
natural
traditional.
gas, yeah.
So I think that's where some of the confusion was, and that's probably why previous planning commissions had it in that S1 Conservancy, because there was already existing gas wells. So I understand why they had it there, but I don't believe it fits in with hydraulic fracturing in this community, and that technology being here right now. So I think there's a lot of changes that we need to look at and make some modifications to that, and we'll have several opportunities to do so. Were you done with your comments there, Mr. Biondo?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Very good. That's great. Happy birthday to Mrs. Poach. Fantastic. Mr. Adams, speedy recovery, and yes, the happy Easter to our Orthodox Christians. And I just want to make just one comment to assure council and the residents that our public hearing that we did for the zoning ordinance was held and done in all the appropriate ways. So the information that the speaker gave wasn't quite accurate, but everything was done appropriately. And we did have a representative from Pitcairn Council speaking at the meeting, but they will also get another opportunity to speak as well. But I just want to assure the public that everything was done appropriately.
Yeah, just one comment on that, Mayor.
Mr. Ratcher.
It's a basic principle in law. When you come forward and claim you don't have notice, that claim goes away if you actually come to the hearing that you were supposed to have notice of and get an opportunity to speak. Mm-hmm. So Pitcairn had a representative, and my recollection is that the gentleman that came up said that he was speaking on behalf of council.
Yes, and
Yeah.
and Pitcairn Mayor was here, and
So-
also
Yeah.
another council.
So to
person
the
was here.
extent that there was any defect in notice of Pitcairn Council, and that's the only party that needed to get notice, if at all, that was cured by the gentleman's testimony here.
Exactly,
I agree.
exactly.
Well, that's it for my comments. Any other,
Motion to
any other
adjourn?
business?
Second.
We have a motion second. That's good enough business for me. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good night.